Hello everyone, and welcome to Mr. History! This is Africa, and here's Zimbabwe. Now, Ngatiendi, shall we? The mountains, rivers, highlands, and forests of Zimbabwe were first inhabited by the hunter-gatherer people group known as the San. Then, around the time of Christ, the Bantu-speaking peoples began arriving and settling in the land. Bantu speakers today comprise the demographic majority of the country, over 80% of whom belong to the Shona ethnic group. One of the first major states to form in the region was the southern kingdom of Mapungubwe, believed to have consisted of a branch of the Shona people known as the Kalanga, but this is not known for certain. The kingdom was centered here, around this rugged hill. The elites lived on top, the commoners dwelt at the base. Though grounded in agriculture, the economy was boosted by trade with the states to the east, where Arab merchants operated and who very much desired ivory and gold. Precisely what precipitated the state's decline isn't known, perhaps shifting trade routes, but to the north, the Shona were forming an even greater kingdom. So great, in fact, that it is called Great Zimbabwe. This state assumed the trading responsibilities of its predecessor and exported gold and other goods in the Indian Ocean trade. The name of the office of the leader was Mambo, and a Mambo was both a political and a religious ruler. This is where they lived, within the circle of the Great Enclosure, a remarkable example of dry stone masonry. This was the symbol of Great Zimbabwe, possibly a species of eagle, soapstone carvings of which have been discovered at the site. The state, founded in the 11th century, lasted for some 500 years before it declined and fell, and no one knows why. But Great Zimbabwe's influence endured, whether in architecture or through direct politics, as the kingdom of Mutapa was believed to have been founded by a warrior prince from Great Zimbabwe, and it was by conquest that Mutapa expanded, and, as is often the case, infighting amongst the elites led to its downfall. Further, from the distant shores of Europe, the Portuguese had entered Africa and were eager to muscle into the continent's trade, and installed friendly monarchs who ensured the state's loyalty to Portugal's interests. The Rhodesia Empire proved a potent challenger to the Portuguese, and leaders such as Changamaya Dombo repelled their advance with battlefield victories and safeguarded the bulk of Zimbabwe's territory. Like all nations, however, it faced multiple challenges. Sword of Damocles, remember, it's tough at the top. Someone always wants to supplant you. And that challenge came from a Zulu tribe from the south known as the Ndebele, who invaded and took control. The second king of this state signed over exclusive mining rights to the British South Africa Company. Thus, the business magnate Cecil Rhodes achieved an imperial foothold in the region, and in stepped the British. The king had apparently misunderstood the import and gravity of the document and was unhappy, and tensions escalated, and I know I've asked this question many times, but it might be different here. Now, what do you think happened? Of course it was war, but while extremely outnumbered, the British were victorious thanks to a combination of formidable discipline, order, and this thing. The world's first fully automatic machine gun. The Maxim gun obliterated all before it, and rifles and spears were about as effective against it as a packet of toothpicks. However, when the British diverted a bunch of troops to attack the Boers in South Africa, the mostly undefended Zimbabwe was vulnerable. And what do you... That's right, more war. It was a tougher fight this time around, but again ended in a British win. The land, meanwhile, was named Rhodesia, after Rhodes. No, not that one. No, not those Rhodes either. The one with the mustache. No, the person. Thank you. Now, technically, there were two Rhodesias, north and south, Zimbabwe being the southern one. In 1923, it became a self-governing colony of the British Empire. The Land Apportionment Act of 1930 restricted the places in which Africans could buy land, and of course the Africans were displeased and resentment grew. During World War II, South Rhodesians fought with bravery and distinction, and in the years after 1945, some 200,000 British settlers arrived and further built up the capital city of Salisbury. The 1960s brought huge changes for the African continent as native demands for independence were heeded and European colonies were dissolved. But when Northern Rhodesia became Zambia in 1964, the South just renamed itself Rhodesia, and the Prime Minister, Ian Smith, who was born in the country and served as a fighter pilot in World War II, unilaterally declared independence from the UK in 1965, the first time a country had done so since the American colonies back in 1776. Britain retaliated by asking the UN to impose sanctions on Rhodesia, which it did, and African left-wing militant groups arose, supported by the Soviet Union and China, to challenge Smith's government. And what? The Rhodesian Bush War is what happened. It was a long, vicious conflict with atrocities committed on all sides, and though Rhodesian government forces caused far more casualties than they sustained, the costliness of the war mounted more and more, and moves were made towards ending white minority rule. And in 1979, the country briefly returned to British governance while elections were held. And socialist revolutionary leader Robert Mugabe won, and in 1980 became the first prime minister, and in 1987, the president of the independent nation of Zimbabwe. Mugabe's ruthlessness as a leader was not long in manifesting itself, as he dispatched his North Korean-trained 5th Brigade to butcher thousands of dissidents. Many white people had left the nation, but the small amount remaining still owned a huge percentage of the farmland. And while land redistribution was in effect, it wasn't happening fast enough to please Mugabe, who encouraged and supported attacks on white landowners, and, in the year 2000, gave the official okay to the government to seize farms without offering compensation. Despite Zimbabwe's High Court denouncing these measures as illegal, the attacks and forced acquisitions persisted. Now, anyone who knows the story of the kulaks in the Soviet Union could tell you it's not smart to mess around with farm grabbing. Farms are where food comes from. Much of the seized farmland was either left untended or not managed properly, and, surprise, surprise, economic collapse ensued, and in a few short years, some 2/3 of the population were relying on food aid. Hyperinflation set in, and public health worsened. Already stricken with an HIV crisis, now cholera began to ravage the population, whose life expectancy plummeted. And yet, in 2013, Mugabe mysteriously won the election again. And, also mysteriously, things did not get better. Protests erupted, and in 2017, at the age of 93, he was toppled in a coup. He was replaced by his former vice president, who won the 2018 election. And things did not really get better. But let's hope they do. Zimbabwe at this present moment possesses a medium level of human development, meaning there is a need for improvement in the administration of this beautiful nation, and let's hope the necessary improvement will be made. So that's it for Zimbabwe, and that's all from me for now. Bye-bye! Whew, wow. That's all the countries of the world done, and good gracious, it took a long time. Many earlier videos, I'm aware, are not as good because they tended to be too super quick. As I progressed, I started to take the videos more seriously, and I really would like to redo some countries. But beyond that, there's a whole bunch of states, regions, territories, islands, etc. that, while not universally regarded as nations, still nevertheless deserve their own videos. I'd like to get these done while also producing different videos on all sorts of topics. So thank you all for your suggestions and support, and I'll see you soon.